This is Philip Saunders and Travel in the Know from Lviv in western Ukraine. Today is the 1st of October, and since 2015 this date has marked Defenders Day in this country, on which veterans are honoured and fallen members of the Ukrainian armed forces as well. And obviously at this time, in the middle of conflict with its neighbour Russia, the ceremonies are particularly poignant. Last night I took a bus from Krakow in Poland to Lviv. It's about an 8.5-hour journey, made much slower by the current situation. And I felt it important to come here to the Field of Mars, which has been transformed in recent years into a cemetery of Ukrainian soldiers who have lost their lives, in order to pay my personal respects. This channel isn't designed to report the news or provide political commentary. It's about travel and discovery, and travel includes meeting people and celebrating lives. And here, what do we see? We see, whatever your political opinion or perspective, the tragedy of far too many lives lost. And to be honest, I found it overwhelmingly moving to be here today. First of all, earlier in the morning, there was a ceremony with a Ukrainian military band playing music in memory of fallen comrades. And also an armed salute, which I think did two things for me. First of all, it brings the daily horror of war that much closer. And at that time, this square was absolutely full of people. Soldiers in uniform, men and women, some of them extremely young, mourning mothers, grandmothers, families, and plenty of school children as well, to make sure that this day was marked with remembrance and respect. When one considers that we are in the city, which is the largest western Ukrainian city, a very long way away from the front line, it's a reminder that every community in this country is impacted by unbearable, terrible loss. And just imagine, these scenes are repeated all over this country, one of the largest countries in Europe, only a few hours by bus from major cities at the heart of the European Union. I'm also bound to think that in every Russian community there are similar scenes, and irrespective of the rights and wrongs of any conflict, to see the graves of so many wonderful young men and women with stories still to tell, with lives that should have still been lived and brought so much to their families and communities, you can only but feel devastated. And Igor was only 23 years old, and there are many who are sadly much, much younger. After the official ceremony, I started to walk among the graves to try to learn some of the individual stories. And even in that time, there were 2 services committing soldiers to their graves, with local priests, families and friends. You can see people, either individually or in groups, praying at a grave that has special significance for them. It's almost too painful to look in their direction to think what relationship they have with that person. It must be just so awful for mothers, fathers, wives, husbands, brothers and sisters, and of course comrades in arms. I also met a large group of school children who all wanted to practice their English and who all spoke so well.
Today we are here to give a honor for our heroes and support their families with our being in here. I'm a veteran of Russian-Ukrainians war. It's very important for me to be here and tell my students about the war, about the life in the war. It's an important day for us, for our mind and for our memory.
I'm sure, sadly, you have probably lost many friends in the war. Are any of them buried here as well? Is there a chance for you to remember them here?
There I have, on this place, I have 4 or 5 friends from my 18 brigades force. They are stay here for forever.
I lived in Russia in the 1990s for 3 years. I
Okay.
worked here in Ukraine as well. So I have friends who are Russian, I have friends who are Ukrainian. So my question is it possible that there will ever be friendship between Russians and Ukrainians again?
No, it's never can be again. It shouldn't be again. They're our enemies for all time, and so if I believe, I never allow the friendship with our enemies, and I teach it for our students.
Okay. Do you believe there will be a fair, just peace for Ukraine soon or in a long time?
No, I think it will be for a long time. Yeah.
Thank
We
you.
must be wait for the peace.
Every grave kept so beautifully. And look here, even a solar panel to make sure that Igor's memory is kept alive through light after dark. May he rest in peace. Defenders Day is really one of those imperfect English translations because, in fact, in 2021, the day's name was officially changed to the Day of Defenders and Defendresses of the Ukrainian homeland, recognizing that both men and women are obviously making a huge contribution and sacrifice. There is an emphasis as well on support for veterans and the recognition of their deeds. So some of the things that will be happening today is that many people will be writing letters to soldiers who are prisoners of war, maybe not even their own family members, supporting the families of the fallen with practical assistance, and also making charitable contributions towards the Ukrainian armed forces. As we wander down the side of the Field of Mars, we can see another cemetery behind us. And this is actually the old historic city cemetery. And it tells us a lot about the complex history of this part of the world. We're in Lviv, which has been known as Lvov when it was part of the Soviet Union, and earlier when it was part of Austria-Hungary as Lemberg, believe it or not. And it's also been part of Poland. We're well out of the historic city centre, and that's why this cemetery is here, because when it was founded in the period of the Austrian-Hungarian Empire, an edict had been issued that all cemeteries should lie in the outer reaches of cities and not in the centre. There are 2 symbols that I do feel it's important to explain to you, though. First of all, the Ukrainian flag, which is obviously omnipresent here, with its blue layer on top and yellow layer underneath. It's interesting to know what that actually represents. It symbolizes a blue sky over golden wheat fields, representing the fertility and wealth of the land and the Ukrainian people's aspirations for statehood and freedom. It is rather a beautiful flag, and in the simplest way as well, it reflects a nation in its entirety. This country is so rich in agricultural land and at the same time is famed for blue skies, although not so much today. I can't actually think of a national flag which represents a country so well. The other flag, which you see quite a lot around here, has got a red horizontal stripe and underneath it a black horizontal stripe. And that is somewhat more controversial. Let me try to explain, because it's not easy. The red and black flag is actually a traditional symbol of Ukrainian nationalism. It dates back at least to 1922, representing a metaphor of Ukrainian blood on black earth, so a little different to the national symbol. The red and black flag has also been associated with Stefan Bandera, who was a fascist leader who, as late as March 1945, actually created an army to fight with Nazi Germany against the Soviet Union. And this is part of a narrative you hear from Moscow claiming a rise of neo-fascism in Ukraine. There's no question that Bandera has been used by some as a nationalist symbol. You can see that here in Lviv, where there's actually a monument to him. This may well be misguided and has caused a lot of upset in neighbouring Poland, which in every other respect has been unwavering in its support for Ukraine. I think the way to look at it from a historical perspective, because as I stress, I'm not going to make any political statements, is it's rather like Martin Luther. Martin Luther has frankly been a hero to me in many ways. Somebody who made the Bible accessible to people for the first time and who also stood up against terrible abuses that were going on in the church. However, unfortunately, he was also a dreadful anti-Semite, something that many of the people who praise him and remember him forget, perhaps too conveniently. So I think at a time of war, that helps put this story in context. As I bring this vlog to a conclusion, I have to ask myself, was this the right thing to do? Should I have filmed this? It's difficult. Some people would say that this is a form of tourism or visit that intrudes upon the grief of a nation. I disagree. It's an opportunity to build one's own perspective and also think about the human consequences of the largest conflict in Europe in my lifetime. Also, it's an opportunity to make contact with people like all the school children that I spoke to. It's an opportunity to show that foreigners are still interested in what's happening in Ukraine and part of a European community. But I have had to switch the camera off on a number of occasions. First of all, with the aim of being respectful for those suffering loss and in mourning. And also at times, it's so moving that it brings you to the verge of tears. So many lives lost. Earlier, I was talking to a man sitting in this chair, barely 20, although looking much older, bearded, and his left arm in plaster, and clearly back from the front to remember his friend. He spoke English, and he was very friendly, although clearly deeply affected by everything going on around him. He told me in English that he had to walk up the hill to another grave to remember a friend whose birthday it was today. Then, with his good arm, he patted me on the back and wished me peace. Peace is so elusive in these days, but may it come sooner rather than later, and bring with it a just peace for all.